Hello, this is Morteza Kordi, and here, first of all, I want to change this label here of our app inside this toolbar. Let's go inside this strings.xml file, and for the app name, let's actually change this my calculator to calculator. And if I go into this activity underline calculator.xml file, you can see this name is changed. So let's delete this hello world text view, and I don't want the parent layout to be constraint layout. I want the parent layout to be actually a relative layout or a linear layout. But the constraint layout is actually new. We need to learn how to deal with the constraint layout because it's a very flexible layout. So we can use it. We can actually add a relative layout to this constraint layout, or we can just drag a linear layout. So let's see how we can do that. So first, let me show you the Android emulator. First of all, we need to have a text view here at the top that is going to contain the operations. So let's go back to Android Studio. So let's add a text view here. Inside this palette section, just click on widgets and let's click on text, and then let's choose this text view and let's add it here at the top. So now I want the right edge of this text view to be attached to the right edge of my screen of this layout, constraint layout, and I want the left edge of this text view to be attached to the left edge of this constraint layout, and also this top edge of my text view to be attached to the bottom edge of the toolbar. So let's see how we can do that. You can see this little circle at the right edge of this text view that is pulsating, this green color here, right? Let's drag a line or the constraint to the right edge of the layout. Now this constraint is created, and make sure you can see these icons here. It says turn off auto connect. Let's actually turn this feature off because we want to create these constraints manually. So let's also drag a constraint to the left edge of the screen here of this layout, and here let's also drag a constraint to this bottom edge of this. Actually, you can see it is this bottom edge of this toolbar. Just create a constraint here, right? Now, I want this text view to be match parent. I want the width of this text view to be match parent, and I want the width of this text view to take the whole width of this screen, this constraint layout. So select this text view, and at the right hand side, we can see these attributes. So here it says we have this layout width, which is actually wrap content. Let's change it to match parent. Now this text view takes the whole width here, right? That's it. If you want to, you can add a padding to this text view. But so let's go into this view all attributes, and here we have this padding attribute. So for the left, let's add 10, or let's add number 8. I think 8 is good. So this is our text view here. Just select it and let's specify an ID for this text view. Let's say the ID is txt calculations, because I want to show the user the calculations that happen here. So txt calculations, and then press on enter key on your keyboard. So this is the ID. And for the text attribute, let's delete this value, or let's just put number 0 here as the text, as the initial text of this text view. We can change it later. But here, let me tell you that it is not good to just provide hard-coded values for these attributes. We have the strings.xml file, and we can create string resources there. It is recommended to use that file. But here, because I already taught you how to use the strings.xml file, we are not going to cover that in this application, but it's recommended to use that resource file. So now let me show you the emulator. Now we need to have this view here, right? That is going to contain this text. So for example, the user enters, select or taps number 5, 6, 7. We want to have this view that is going to contain this text view. So let's go back to Android Studio. And here, we are going to add a linear layout to our constraint layout here below this text view. So inside this palette section, let's click on these layouts here and click on linear layout vertical, right? Just drag it and put it here inside this componentry section. Just put it here below this constraint layout. As you can see, these lines are actually guiding us that where we actually want to place this linear layout. We want to place it here inside this constraint layout and below this txt calculations text view. So just release it here. Here it is our linear layout vertical. So now because it is actually just a constraint layout, it is not, it is actually taking the entire width and height of our constraint layout. So we don't want that to happen. So now let's here inside this attribute section, let's click on this one, this icon that says view all attributes, so that we have less attributes here, so that we can see these constraints and, for example, the layout width and the layout height. As you can see, the layout width is match parent. So that's good because we want this view. So let me show you the Android emulator. We want this view here to take the entire width of the parent layout. So now let's select this linear layout vertical. So the layout width is match parent. Let me actually increase the width of this attribute section. So the layout width is match parent. For the layout height, let's add another value. Let's say that we have, for example, number 150. So I think that's good. 150 is good for the height of our linear layout. So now let's also change the background color of our layout so that we can see how it is actually affected, how it is positioned inside our layout. Later we can change this color. So let's click on view all attributes, and here we can see this search icon. Just click on it and search for the background attribute. So let's change the color to green. So hashtag for the R, red 00, for the green 99, and for the blue 00. And then press and enter key on your keyboard. So now the background color is green. Now we can also see that these constraints are not created here for this linear layout vertical. So let's actually go into this. Let's see these constraints. Select this linear layout vertical. Let's create a constraint to the right edge of the screen. And let's create another constraint for to the left edge of the screen. A constraint to the bottom edge of our text view. So as you can see, I cannot create that constraint here. It's not actually visible. So we need to do something else. We need to say that this linear layout, let's select this linear layout vertical here. And inside this attribute section, you can see that it says, if I hover over this icon, it says create a connection above. So if I click on it, it is going to create a connection to the above. So let me change the position of this linear layout vertical. You can see that a connection is created to the bottom edge of this toolbar. So I don't want that to happen. So in order to delete a constraint, I just need to double click on this little circle. You can see that here it says just click on it. You don't have to double click, you just need to just click on it. And you can just change the position of your linear layout vertical, and then you can just create a connection to the bottom edge of your text view, of this text view here. But as you can see, it's not possible, it's not actually allowing me to create a connection to these to the bottom edge of the text view. So in order to solve this problem, we can just create a connection to the bottom edge of this toolbar. So again, it says create a connection above. If I click on it, now a connection is created to the above. And here you can see that now a connection is created to the bottom edge of this text view. So I don't think maybe it is a bug in Android because constraint layout is new, but it didn't allow me to manually create this constraint. By just clicking on this icon here, I could create a constraint to the bottom edge of this text view. So now I can change the place of this linear layout vertical, and I can put it here. As you can see, we have some margins here at the left and right. We can delete these margins. I don't like these margins. So just select this linear layout vertical. And here inside this attribute section, here it says the margin for the right is 8. Let's delete this value and put number 0 here. And for the left margin, let's also delete this value and put number 0 here. And now there is no margin here, right? And the constraint is also created to the left, right, and the top. So let's run the app and see that everything works. As you can see, it's showing us an error. And here, let's go back to Android Studio. Here it says error 150 is incompatible with attribute Android layout height dimension. So there is a problem here. Let's select this linear layout vertical. As you can see, 150 is not good. We need to put DP here, right? Density pixels, and then press and enter key on your keyboard. So here we are putting a hard-coded value 150. Is it good to do that? For example, other devices with different heights screens can handle these kinds of layouts. Yes, they can, because Android uses DPI, dots per inch, and it doesn't really matter what value you put here inside it. For example, layout width or the layout height of your views, the Android is going to manage that for you for specific devices. And then you are not going to encounter any other problems, because Android uses a very great technology that can handle these values. So here, and that's why I told you to read that article about supporting multiple screens. So now let's run the app again. Let me show you the emulator. And now the app can run successfully. So here you can see that we have this text view at the top. We have this linear layout vertical here, and everything works fine so far. Let's go back to Android Studio. Let me double click on this file here. So we need to actually close this section here. So now we need to add this text view to our linear layout vertical. So let's go back to Android Studio, and here click on text inside this palette section. Just drag this text view here and put it inside this. You can put it here. You can either put it here, or you can either put it here inside this componentry section. So it doesn't really matter. So here we have this text view inside this linear layout vertical. And in order to make sure that this text view is inside this linear layout vertical, you can see this componentry here. You can check this componentry here, and you can see that this text view is inside this linear layout vertical. Or in other words, this linear layout vertical is the parent of this text view. So now we want this text view to be here at the right hand side and vertically center. So let me show you the Android Studio. So just select this text view, and for the layout width, let's choose the value wrap content. And here I want to put this text view at the right hand side of this linear layout vertical, right? So let's choose the layout gravity attributes. So let's click on this view all attributes, and here we can search for gravity, and here we have this layout gravity. Just open it, and let's check this checkbox that says right. Now this text view is at the right hand side, and let me just make it wider. And here we have this center vertical. Let's also choose this one. Let me uncheck this right here. So as you can see, when I check this center vertical, nothing happens here, because this attribute is conflicting with other attributes, and that's why it is not affecting this text view. So let's just choose right. Let's uncheck this center vertical here. Now that we set the layout gravity of this text view to be right, you know that what function this layout gravity has, right? The layout gravity is going to determine the place of this layout according to the parent. So we know that the text view is the child of this linear layout, and the linear layout is the parent of this text view. So when we say text view, the layout gravity of this text view to be right, this means that according to the parent, which is this one, this linear layout vertical, we want this text view to be at the right hand side. But when we wanted to change the place of this text view to be center vertical, we couldn't do that because I told you this attribute is going to conflict with other attributes. So what is that other attributes? We have this linear layout vertical, which is going to be the parent, right? The parent attributes affect the child views. So when I select this linear layout vertical, if I select it, here inside this attribute section, let's search for the gravity attribute. The gravity attribute is going to specify the position of the child views inside the parent. So the text view is the child of this linear layout vertical. So here we have this gravity attribute, open it. Now we can say that this text view, the child, we want this child to be centered vertical here. So let's find this attribute here, center vertical, and check this checkbox. Now you can see that this text view here is now at the center vertical of this linear layout vertical. So it is very important to consider other attributes, for example, the parent, the child. All these attributes are going to actually conflict with each other if you don't know what you're doing in your XML file. This is very important. Most of the developers ignore these attributes, and they are going to actually encounter problems with their layouts. And this is going to be a very big problem later when you want to create complex layouts. Okay? So now that we have this text view here, the right position, right? Let me show you the emulator. This is the position that we want to have the text view. We can actually change the padding, the inner spacing of this text view. So let me close this searching here. And here we have this padding attribute. So for the right pad, this padding here, we can say, for example, 20 inside this place. We can say 20. Or if you want to, you can change this value. But I think 20 is good. We can also increase the size of this text inside this text view. So let's search for the text size. If you want to, you can search it, or you can actually, as you can see, these attributes are ordered alphabetically. So if I scroll down here, we can find the text size, ST here, the text size. Here it is the text size. And for the text size attribute, we should always use SP. So what SP stands for? It stands for scale independent pixels. Okay, so because we want to actually specify the text size of our text view, it's very important to use SP, scale independent. It is going to be independent to other screen densities. Okay, screen independent pixels. And then press and enter key on your keyboard. So let's specify that value here. Let's say that we want to have, for example, number 80 SP, and then press and enter key on your keyboard. Or we can change this value to, for example, 100 SP. 100 is too large. Let's change it to 50 SP. Or let's change it to 25. Or maybe 30. Or 30 SP is good, I think. So let's change the color of this text view. So let's change the color of our linear layout that contains this text view to white. Or we don't have to specify any colors here, so that the color of this constraint layout is going to actually affect the color of our linear layout here. So if I delete this value as the background color of this linear layout, and then press and enter key on your keyboard, so you can see, because we already selected the theme.material.light, we have already this light color here, right? And we have this text view here. Okay, that's it. Let's also specify a text for this text view. So just select this text view, and let's find the text attribute here. So we can find it here. So let's put number 0 as the text of this text view. Now let me show you the emulator so that we can see what we are going to do next. Now we are going to actually, so this equal button, we are going to put it later. For now, we are going to specify these numbers, these operators, this one, this C button here that is going to specify the clear button. If I click on it, as you can see, everything clears. So let's go back to Android Studio. And here we need to add another linear layout vertical to our constraint layout. Let me show you the emulator here. You can see that we don't want to put this equal button here yet because first we want to specify these numbers and these operators here. And this one is a clear button. So for example, if I type something here, if I click on this clear button, everything clears. So now let's go back to Android Studio. Here inside this palette section, click on layouts and then select this linear layout vertical here and just drag it here inside this constraint layout. Make sure that you put it here inside this constraint layout and below this linear layout vertical here above. So select this linear layout vertical. Now we need to add some constraints. And here at the right hand side, if I actually click on this view all attributes, here you can see all the attributes. And if I click on this icon again, now you can see less attributes. Now we can see all of these constraints. So let's click on this one here. Let's click on this icon that says create a connection above, so that a connection is going to be created here above this linear layout vertical. And let's create a connection to the right, and let's create a connection to the left. Okay. So now that we have actually created these connections, because I want to put this equal button here between this linear layout vertical and this one, let's actually increase the top margin of this linear layout vertical. So as you can see, it is now 8. Let's change it to 10. And here for the right margin of this linear layout vertical, let's change this value to number 0. And for the left margin of this linear layout vertical, let's change this value to number 0. But still you can see that there is some space here at the left and right. In order to solve this problem, just select this linear layout vertical, and for the layout width, choose match parent. Just click on this little triangle and choose match parent. And now you can see that there is no space here at the left and right. Let's also add a background color to this linear layout vertical. So just select it, and here just click on view all attributes and search for the background attribute here. And for the background color, let's actually change the background color to red. So hashtag 990000 and then press an enter key on your keyboard. Now we are going to add some horizontal linear layouts to this vertical linear layout here. If I show you the emulator, you can see that we have some rows here and columns. So in order to create these rows, we are going to add some horizontal linear layouts to our vertical linear layout here. Inside this palette section, just click on layouts, and this time let's add this one, linear layout horizontal, to this red linear layout vertical here. Now let's actually go back to our attributes here, and let me click on this view all attributes so that we can see less attributes here, and select this linear layout horizontal. And for the layout width, match parent is good, don't change the layout width. But for the layout height, let's change it to wrap content. Okay. And here we are going to add some image buttons to our linear layout horizontal. So inside this palette section, here we have these images. Just click on it, and here we have this image button. Image button is a button, but it's actually an extension of button. We can add images to this button. So just select this image button and just drag it here. And let's put it here inside this component tree. Just put it inside this linear layout horizontal. So now this window is opened for us, and we can actually specify an image. So let's choose one of these images here, or this one, IC Launcher Round, as the initial image, and then click on OK. But here, let's open this linear layout horizontal inside this component tree. Select this image button here. So first of all, let's give a background color to this linear layout horizontal. So just select it, and let's find the background attribute. let's give the background, for example, blue, hashtag 000099, and then press enter key on your keyboard. So here it is, the background color of our linear layout horizontal. And let's also change this image of this image button. So just select this image button here. Let's find the src attribute here inside this attribute section. And you can just click on this ellipsis button, 3 dots. And here we can search for our image, but we haven't still added our resources to our application. So let's actually close this window. Let me open the Android view. And here, if you want to, you can actually just right click on this drawable folder and then click on reveal in Finder. If you are a Windows user, there is another option in order to see the contents of this folder, but now I don't remember that. But if you cannot find it here, you can just find the path of the project inside your computer, and then you can go inside this res folder, and then you will find this drawable folder. So let me click on this reveal in Finder. So here we have these folders, right? And now we can add the resources that we've downloaded to this res folder here. First, we have this drawable folder that contains, for example, this IC Launcher background. So now let me show you the folder of our resources. So here it is, our resources, and we have this drawable folder. If I open this drawable folder, I'm gonna actually just select all of these images and then right click on them, click on copy 15 items, and then I'm gonna open this drawable folder of my application and then paste these images here. Let's click on back. Now let me click on back here. So here we have this drawable-x HTTPI and drawable-xx HTTPI. These names are very important. If you want to create your own folders, make sure that you have these names. So because this res folder here doesn't have folders with these names here with the same name as these names, I'm gonna just copy these folders and paste them here inside the res of my application. And now let me close these 2 folders here. And if I actually open this drawable folder, you can see that now it is updated, and here all of these images are actually added to the drawable folder. So let me close it. Now let's select this image button here for the src attribute. Just click on this ellipsis button. So now let me show you the emulator. So we are going to put number 7 here as our as the image of our image button. So here just search for 7 and then just select it and then click on OK. So number 7 is added here. But there is a problem here. This image button is taking the entire width of our horizontal linear layout. So let's select this image button, and here you can see that the layout width is match parent. Let's change it to wrap content. Okay, so that's it. Now let's run the app so that actually we can see that everything works fine. So here it is, our button, and we have all our views properly placed inside our constraint layout. So I think that's enough for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we're gonna continue adding components or widgets to our linear layout vertical here. So thank you very much for watching, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial.